Everybody, we're back again with another episode of Ask Chad Grassy Logic. Don't worry, this week's just one episode. We're a little late, but the reason why is because it's been a busy week, and also I don't really have a guest with me today. Gino is going to be joining me today. Go ahead and show that pretty mug, Gino. There we go. So
I don't know about pretty, sir.
Well, you got the radio voice at least.
Well, it's one of those things. You've done it for long enough that it's kind of here. So I will do my best to produce and be on camera.
Provide something.
That,
yeah. Normally, Gino usually chimes in from the background. He's my producer of the show. But some of the guests have, really been telling me that, it'd be great to have Gino, kind of chiming in more in the conversations and stuff, and I agree because you've been learning a lot the past few years from me.
We've been doing this for about 2.5 years together. And I will tell you this right now, everything that I've learned is from Chad for the most part. Not everything, but a lot of it is in there. But a lot of the advocacy work that you do and a lot of that stuff, the behind the scenes kind of thing that has been going on, I've been learning a lot right here. And, I'm a political guy. I like to talk my politics and stuff like that. So I've had a few ideas, and I think that's what we talk about when the shows are done with your guests. And it's pretty cool.
It is, maybe one day we'll keep the camera rolling or something like that. But we have some really good conversations afterwards, and sometimes before.
Ask Chad Grassy Logic. After dark show.
Dark show. We'll work on that. We'll ask Lindsay. She's usually pretty good with some ideas and stuff like that too. So I appreciate you joining me on camera. For the first time. As I said, this last part of the season, I kind of left it open for some different ideas, some different things and stuff like that. So if this is something that catches on, why not? We'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, we can do at least for times when it's tough to get a guest or when things get busy. We get busy during sometimes. But just to make sure that everybody gets that update and all the other things that are going on, especially as we're coming up, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming up here.
Yeah, and getting guests is a lot of work.
And I'm thankful that you get to do all of that.
So sometimes it's not always like in the best, the easiest, way to get guests and stuff. But, I think that, doing stuff like this is going to help. So that way I can give you guys just more direct information. And then Gino can chime in too. Because, I kind of feel that we have different perspectives on things and different spectrums.
And that's the whole part of the whole thing is getting those different perspectives, but we're getting everything to work together with the same idea. If everybody has the same goal, we can work towards that goal with just different ways of getting around it.
Yeah, exactly.
All paths lead to Rome, as they say. Well, if you're going to Rome, that is.
Yeah. If we got a red plane and a blue plane, we don't know which one to go. Well, maybe come out in the car, let's see what happens.
Hey, I like purple.
There we go. See,
there you go.
Get you a purple plane. Like the purple weed. So this episode also might be a little bit shorter than normal, which I don't see it being wrong. A bad thing.
I don't see that as a problem.
Yeah, especially for Gino, since he's the one doing the editing. So, this might be a little bit of a shorter episode. Like I said, we're playing with some stuff. We're doing some other things. I got a couple other things planned for the rest of the season. A couple other ideas that we might implement, and who knows, it might catch on. We might do, some other things and kind of branch out in that sense.
It's always good to try something a little new because you never know what's going to work. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you have to get to the politicians. Try a little something here. If it works, you make money.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, let's try something a little bit new here.
A little different. A little bit off the wall.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes and, enjoy the show. If not, enjoy Gino and his voice.
Yay!
All right, so we're going to get...
Not so much my face, but my voice.
I hear Gino on the radio sometimes, and it's weird. I'll just be driving around. I'm like, oh, there's Gino, because, it's a radio station. So, I'll tune in. I'm like, oh, there's Gino right there. He has his radio voice on. It's a little bit different than what you hear right now.
Whatever. Go ahead, continue. All
right, cool. Stuff. So let's get into the episode, guys. Like I said, it might be a little bit short, but let's get on, right? So I was out of town on Wednesday. I was in Santa Fe. I went up to the CCD hearing. I know you knew about it. I've been telling everybody for weeks about it.
I remembered it when I texted you.
So Gino texted me while I was, after the hearing, I was eating, and he was like, hey, you ready? And I was like, oh, shit. And so I called him, I was like, hey, man.
I'm in Santa Fe. Oh, yeah, that's today. Now, in my defense, I do get up at 4 o'clock every morning, and, by 3 o'clock, I may not necessarily know where I am at that time,
It makes sense.
And it's not cannabis induced, believe it or not. So
self-induced.
It's a self thing. But anyway, you were busy there.
Yeah, it was a busy day. So me, myself, Josh Villegas, one of the guys I do the Res Dogs with, and Colt DeMorris. He's from Texas. He does a lot of Texas advocacy stuff there too. We all carpooled up to Santa Fe. We left at 4 a.m. We left early as shit. We left at 4 a.m., meaning I got up like at 3. And we got to Santa Fe around 8:30, 8:20. When we finally pulled in, we took a couple, pit stops and stuff like that. We get there for the CCD rules hearing. As you guys have been knowing, I've been telling y'all for weeks that this was happening. It was actually a pretty good turnout. I was a little, I guess I wasn't too surprised on people not showing up that I thought would show up. I know life happens, things happen, but sometimes people talk the big talk and don't show up. And to be honest, that's what I've noticed throughout the years of advocacies. A lot of people will do that, and that's kind of been the norm. So I'm never really surprised when it happens. I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm just glad there's almost 30 people here. Yeah. That's actually a pretty good turnout, meaning it's like 30 different businesses essentially showing up. Yeah. So I was happy to see that. It was pretty much the room that we were in wasn't very big, but we did fill up the whole room and there was no seats left. So Todd from the CCD, it was really great. He was really respectful. He did a really good job for us. It was very catering. And that's something that people were noticing too. Is like, yeah, did you notice Todd was, really kind of catering, like, this is your house, even bringing chairs out himself? Because usually there's someone else that does that. Yeah. Usually it's like someone else, not the CCD director, going and get the chairs themselves for people to sit down.
Or maybe we should work on getting him on the show.
I did ask him after the episode. I don't mean to call you out like that, Todd, but I did ask him after the episode, after the hearing. I did speak to him for a little bit. We stayed behind. And I asked him if he'd be on the show, and he said, "Yeah, let me get through my PR people through the state and everything like that, and I'll get back to you." And I told him, I was like, "Cool." He's like, "You're not hard to find or get a hold of." I was like, "No, yeah, you can find me." So
one of the best places to get a lot of that information is to get it straight directly from the CCD director. So that would be awesome.
I'd be ecstatic to have that. It's something that I've wanted this whole time.
Yeah, even if we have to do it remotely, we've done it before, so that'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, great to have them in person, but if we have to do it remote, no big deal. Yeah. Having us in person is good enough. So it was a really good hearing, and the way that these go, and I knew this was going to be the case. They limited us to 3 minutes, and so I actually got everybody prepared for 2 minutes. And so they got a little bit extra time. And to be honest, a lot of the stuff that people wrote went over that 2 minutes anyway. And, most of the people got cut off because their testimony was so long. Because I warned everybody, I said, they're only going to give you 2 to 3 minutes, 3 minutes tops. And, they gave us the gracious of 3 minutes. So going on further, guys, keep that in mind for the rule hearings or any of that. You only get 2 minutes. That's why it's important to do your comments online, digitally, and then show up in person.
Because there's not a limit online.
Exactly. You're only limited to your imagination essentially online. I wrote 4 pages, was my public comment. It was 4 pages. I went through several different rules, my suggestions of fixes, et cetera, et cetera. We go in, and, I sat in somewhere in the middle or somewhere on the side, and, we go in, and a really good hearing, stayed hi to everybody. It was really cool to see everyone that we went, met some new people too. That was great. And meeting some people for the first time and, to face to face, we see them online and stuff. So it was real cool to see those people too. So, so they started the hearing, and normally the way they start, they have to do a bunch of procedural shit. They have to go in and say, okay, these are the public comments. We have to put them in as, what's the word he uses? Pretty much, when they enter something almost as evidence, but it's not. They call it. I can't think of the word off the top of my head right now. They used it during the day, but anyway, they put it into the record is really what they're doing, and they're opening it up to the record. So all the public comments digitally online. They were naming 67 or something like that.
That's pretty.
He went through the who was the person that named the comment, and went down and blah blah blah. All 67.
Wow.
So it takes a while. Because this started at 9:15 in the morning is when we finally started. They gave some people extra time to kind of roll in, and that was nice. New Mexico time. So it started 9 o'clock New Mexico time. So they did all that, the procedural stuff. They went through that, and then they didn't go through every single rule, but they did go through the rules because one of them was like 13, 20 something pages long or something like that. It was a long one, and some other ones 2-3 pages. So they pretty much just went a summary down all the rules that, their proposed changes and stuff. And then after that, they opened it up for public comment. And by the time they opened up for public comment, it was probably around almost 10, because, that shit takes a while. And I told everybody, I said, be there at 9, but, they do take a while to start, but it's great to be there so you can get a seat, because sometimes, it doesn't. And also you have to sign up for public comment. You don't just, automatically, raise your hand if you want to talk. There's a sign-in sheet when you go in, and there was 2 actually. Usually there's only 1. This time they had a attendance sheet for everybody that showed up, and then they had the public comment sheet for people that wanted to make public comment, which makes sense.
Yeah. Sounds like they're trying to get an idea of, how many people really want to learn about it, or at least the attendance to see who's going to participate.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that was good to see, because usually, like I said, it's one sheet. Here's the you know, the public comment sheet, or whatever the fuck. It's also the sign-in sheet sometimes. But it's good that they had the two sheets. That way, you know, that, you know, you can do the public comment and, you know, the attendance. So that way, for their records and everyone else's, I mean, it was good to know how many people were there.
That's
you know,
good.
there's almost about 30 or maybe more, and it was really cool to see. Anyway, so they open up public comments. I happened to be the second one that made public comment, because I just happened to be the second one that signed up. I really just reminded everybody that we should be looking towards a way to start deregulating the cannabis industry versus over-regulating, or continuing the over-regulation of the industry. Because you and I both know that the regulations are a little bit crazy. And, you know, I've been learning more about it, you know, throughout the years with this too, and how it's changing. That it's very over-regulated. And I started off with that, but beforehand, with that Zoom hearing that I had with all the people, and some of you watching were probably in attendance, we strategized, and I told people, okay, these are the rules, blah, blah, blah. Who wants to take this up? Who wants to take this up? Okay, you're going to take that. Cool. You're going to speak on that. Because what I wanted to get around, and what still happened at the end of the day, was us saying the same thing and wasting, I wouldn't say wasting time, but wasting your own time with the 2-3 minutes that you have. If 5 other people are saying this one thing, great. Let them finish that. But when you get to your public comment, if you're going to say it, maybe think about something else, because there might be something more important that you can say that hasn't been said yet, you know, and you don't want to waste that time or that opportunity. So if many other people have already said it, and what I'm talking about is the opaque packaging. You know, and don't get me wrong, it was a great argument. You know, there was a good reason why so many of us were bringing that up, is because if they go to this, a lot of businesses will hurt. You know, like some people buy packaging months in advance, you know, or year out, you know. And
yeah, you have to. It's not like you're just going to order everything for tomorrow when the rules change. So,
exactly. But the only problem with that is it's a law change. It has to change in the CRA. So that's why I was like, okay, we need to let them know we acknowledge this. We don't like it, but we have to acknowledge that it's a CRA change, and will you work with us in the time being while we figure this out in the CRA? And that's really what I wanted the message to go across with them. And I think it got there for the most part, but it started getting dragged on. More people kept talking about it. And it got so bad that I had to post on my stories on Instagram that I was like, all right, guys, let's move on to another argument. I think they get it. Because, you know, like, I just kept hearing it. I was like, okay, there's so many other things we could be talking about too. I mean, there was like 40 pages of changes or something like that altogether that we could be talking about. We can't get stuck on one thing.
Exactly. You don't want to get stuck on that one thing, because then there will be other rules that might be minor changes. They might be something simple, but the idea of unintended consequences when you get to those other rules, you know, and if nobody talks about it or nobody brings it up, and all of a sudden you're like, well, why didn't we do anything? Because everybody talked about that one thing and they didn't get a chance to.
Exactly. And, you know, some people actually read the room and was reading that too, and they're kind of basing their public comments off of it. So they're leaving it loose, and that was smart. And that's smart to do. So I'm glad that those of you did it. Good job. And that's kind of what I usually do, but I went second. And I did this on purpose too, because I wanted to focus on the patients. I knew everybody was going to be hyper-focused on businesses. And the patients always get forgotten about and kind of thrown to the side. And I even said this during my public comment. I said, you know, normally I would, you know, say everything I could about all the rules, but I don't have time today. I said, I'm actually going to be here to talk about the patients. You know, everyone sitting behind me is probably going to take over and say everything that I've already said in my public comment online. But today I want to reiterate some things for patients. And here's the things that I kind of push for. I wanted them to understand that not every city has the same jurisdictions and the same laws and the same rules. So there's a rule change that doesn't allow non-residential areas can't get deliveries, like cannabis deliveries, which didn't make any sense to me. And I had to give them an example. I said, in Las Cruces, we just changed our zoning to allow housing all over the city, wherever you want. So essentially, someone could be living on top of the mall, but they can't get their cannabis because they don't live in a residential area, a zoned residential area, really, essentially, because now it's mixed. You know, it's not really like one zoning, really. It's a mixed kind of thing. So my thing is, now you're leaving it up to the city jurisdictions, and that could, you know, conflict with the CRA. Essentially. And so that was my comment on that one. You know, I was like, please don't do that, because you're only going to be punishing the patients. And I even gave them figures. I said, we only have like 73,000 patients. We're down 3,000 from last month. We had 76,000. You know, it's a dwindling number every month. And so, why are we punishing the very minority users of this industry for no reason? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Because my second one was they're trying to limit patients how many milligrams of THC they can get per package. And if I remember correctly, I think it's just at the lounges, which is even more weird because then that's more of a burdensome for packaging. Yeah. Because then you have to make lounge specific packaging. I'm just like, okay, I get that you guys are trying to limit how much people are getting out of lounge, but if someone's getting 800 milligrams, they're more than likely able to handle that, because these days most people know that edibles you don't play with. Like, it's not something that you just, and like people that have been around for a while, they can probably eat more. Like myself, I could probably take 300 milligrams and not start maybe feeling it. But someone who,
and I could take half of one and go, whoa.
Exactly. And you know that,
I know that. Yeah. I realize that. It sounds like, once again, they're trying to use the alcohol rules as an example of what to do with the cannabis rules, because of course they changed the rules for alcohol and the number of drinks you can have, the number of ounces of say hard liquor or spirits that you can have inside of those, and I'm very aware of all those rules. So even though I don't do that anymore, for reasons, but it sounds like they're trying to do that, because if you can limit the number. It's like the goofy rule that if you're buying a round for the table, you can only have 2 drinks in your hand at the same time.
Yeah, you can only double fist one person.
Exactly. And so so that they're trying to do the same thing and limiting the amount of the THC on there. Yeah. But once again, as I have learned through everything else like that, the THC is just one of the compounds that's in there. There's all the other stuff that's in there that makes a difference in that. Yeah. So it's I don't know if you want to talk about. There's no way to really equate that, because it does affect everybody differently with the alcohol stuff, and saying like, if I do this much THC, it's going to have this much effect on me because of all the other compounds. At least that's from my amateur view on it, So
yeah, no, and you're right too. My only problem is they're doing this just to the patients. Yes. They're, if this was for rec side, by all means, whatever. They're just it's for the fun thing. But if you're limiting a patient, that doesn't make sense to me. They have a medical cannabis card.
They've already limited the patients anyway for the amount that they can have for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have your rolling 90-day limit, and I'm going to get to that too. That's another thing that I mentioned. They already limit us, to a certain amount per rolling days. So why would you limit us when we're buying at the time, even if we're at a lounge? Because I will take a 100 milligram drink and I'm fine. And I'll be okay. And, it'll probably take a long time for me to feel anything slightly. 200-300 milligrams, okay, maybe, but I'm also not chugging those, just like at a bar, I'm kind of pacing myself, hanging out, smoking a doobie, having a good time. I just don't see a reason why we need to limit patients like this. Like, I get they're trying to do the same thing at a bar, but when it's medical, we don't have a medical alcohol program. Like there's a total difference, and that's what I have to remind people.
Although it can be prescribed, that's a rule in there. I know that one.
Alcohol?
Yeah.
Oh no shit.
And it can be prescribed in New Mexico, but nobody's really ever going to do that.
Yeah.
I find that interesting, because if we want to concentrate on the medicinal side of cannabis, because you have different doses for different patients that have that. And a lot of times, as a person uses regular medication, they'll increase those doses because the body builds up a little bit of a tolerance for anything else.
Especially cancer patients.
Especially cancer patients. And so it is one of those things where, why are you limiting that? If it is and that's, like I said, why I think you should concentrate more on the medicinal part and on the patient part, because, some of that should be into the hands of, say, some medical professionals, but professionals that understand how cannabis works.
So, exactly.
And that's another long road as advocates that you guys are truly trying to get into, and you've been doing that for years. But the idea of actually trying to bring this down on the patients when it should be the patients that you're catering to.
Yeah, exactly. It should be, in my opinion, opposite, if anything. Exactly. Like I really don't want that to happen to the, the rec side, but if anything, it should be opposite, because we did this for the patients for a reason, to allow them to have, essentially no limit per package, whatever. And it's up to the producers. Most of them just, stop it at 500. They don't have to. But if someone needs 1,000 milligrams, of THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, whatever, they should be able to get that, like if they need it, especially the cancer patients. Because as we all know, the RSO or, the FICO, the oil that the cancer patients use, you see them, put the little bit dot in, they need a lot of that, and they get up to about a gram a day, they start to gradually work themselves up because they need that amount of THC to fight it. or even just to help them, through chemo.
To help them cope with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like they need the high amounts of THC. And those are the people I advocate for to have high amounts of THC, because we all know THC is not everything.
I mentioned that before.
Yeah, you heard that a couple times. But I do add a caveat on there. There are instances where certain people need that, and it's not everybody. But it's not everyone. But the patients aren't everybody either. They're very special people in our industry. And one thing I did remind them too is the reason why we have this rec industry adult side that people are making money off of is because of the patients in the first place. So we can't forget them. So let's not make it harder for them already, because thousands are leaving the program every month already. So this is already a smaller number that you're attacking, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, like I said, I think all the years that you've been an advocate on the medical side, I mean, it made it one of the reasons that you went recreational, is to make it a little bit easier for the patients to make sure that they can get everything. Yeah,
exactly. And there was one change that I did like, and I did tell them that. I think I told them, I don't know, I kind of blacked out at one point. But it was in my public comments. I do know I put it. Was the fact that they can give medical cannabis patients free cannabis now. It's none of this penny out stuff or whatever. It's like straight up medical cannabis patient. You can't afford it. We're just going to give you this for free, whatever, gets reported, all that good stuff. And they're allowing that. And that's great.
Hey, as long as you keep records of it and you know who got, where it comes from and where it's going, that should be perfectly fine. Yeah. I mean, I know that they tried to sue the insurance companies to go ahead and try and cover cannabis, which I don't think is any insurance that you're going to be able to get them to do that until you either get it deregulated, or if it changes its, status on there from going from, what is it, class 1?
It would be a Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. It's the Schedule 3.
Because then, as Schedule 3 medicine, then you probably get insurance companies to start covering that stuff at that time. But that's to be able to give them free samples of free cannabis when they need it. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. And then that was something that I did advocate for. I was like, I think that's great. And that's something that we've been wanting for pretty much this whole time since I've been a patient. I became a patient in 2013. And pretty much the whole time, that's something that we've been asking and begging for, patient fund, free cannabis for patients, something, help us out here. We're a poor state. But now I think we're at the point where it makes sense. You know what I mean? We're at the point in the industry where it makes sense. So the last thing that I really pointed out to them, and this was me proposing this. This wasn't in the rules. This is nowhere really other than, the beginning part. So I asked them to end the rolling 90 days for the amount of cannabis that you get. I'm not asking them to increase the amount of cannabis that we get, but lower the amount of time that it takes to replenish that. So, I've explained it before. If you buy 1 gram today, in 90 days, that same 1 gram will be available. And for some patients in New Mexico, that's just doesn't work. You know what I mean? And that's a very long time. That's 3 months. So I proposed 30 days. And I backed this up when I said there's some states that already do this at a shorter time period, and it's Hawaii. They do 14 days for the 4 ounces that they get. Yeah, they do 14 rolling days. And I said they already do that. It seems to work, and it does benefit the patients. I think 30 days is more than enough for here, because we do get more than the patients in Hawaii, so that will hold you over for the 30 days. And if there are any patients out there that this wouldn't, please tell me, and I will advocate for something shorter, because this is just what I've been told, that 30 days for most patients, they can probably get by with, it's almost a pound that you can get as a patient. So, in 30 days, if I buy an ounce now, it's not going to take me 3 months to get that 28 grams back. And, who knows if I need that 28 grams within that 3 months. It takes next month. It's like a next pay period kind of thing. So that's the reason why I came up with the 30. It's not an arbitrary number like most of the government does. I did talk to people. I said, about 30 days is usually, when I replenish, I'm like, okay, that'd be perfect.
Well, you have, I think, when they came up with the 90, they're equating that one more to your prescriptions, because you can get 90-day prescriptions. I do that a lot for some of my medications. So I have those for 3 months. But once again, if you need more of that, like when I run out, I can't get anything.
Exactly.
And that will happen a lot for, say, my asthma medication or something else like that. I can understand that one as a patient, that would be it. Because when you need your medicine, you need your medicine. And then the rules say that you can't have it. And
it's unfortunate.
That's important. And in many ways.
And it's not that you can't get it. You just have to pay the taxes on it. If you go over your limit.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you go over your limit as a patient, you can still buy the recreational stuff. But then again, that's,
and you don't get
you're getting, what is it, 20, 21?
21 now. Yes, 21% tax now. And you don't get the benefit of the higher THC stuff. So you're limited at the 100 milligrams per package. You don't get 500, or 800. They're trying to limit now, or 1,000, whatever. You don't qualify for that anymore either. So if you're a cancer patient and you need a lot of this, you're shit out of luck. And so I think the 30-day thing is perfect. But like I said, if that's wrong and 14 days, by all means, let me know, and I'll change my mind on it, because that's really how I've advocated throughout the times, what the patients tell me and what I hear, the issues and stuff throughout the whole state. It's not just, I think about it while I'm taking a crap in the morning. It's like, I've talked to real
which
people
I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, of course, the thinking throne. But that was my my public comment. It was only 2.5 minutes long or something like that. And I know this has taken like 20 to explain the whole thing, but there was a lot of context that goes into that and the reason why. And I wanted to bring that up because the patients just get forgotten about.
Yeah.
Now the rest, everyone after me, like I said, the opaque packaging, of course, was the topic of the day. It seemed like they did bring up the hemp stuff, and the CCD did say that was a mistake, and they do want to go back and fix it because they don't want to ban compounds, because cannabis and hemp are the same thing.
Yeah.
Just that THC percentage is the only thing that makes them different these days. So it doesn't make sense because they have the same damn compounds.
Yeah.
And they acknowledge that. So hopefully that is going to change, because with this rule hearing, it doesn't mean what we say and what we want is going to change. It's up to them. They're the final deciders on that. And hopefully they do decide to change and take certain things out and go a different direction. And that was one thing that I told the director afterwards too. And I said, I had a Zoom meeting with a lot of these people here today. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we figured out was, okay, we have all these issues. We see what they're doing here. Well, what's a fix? What's something we can suggest to them instead of just bitching at them the whole time?
Yeah.
Let's be productive and suggest fixes and changes. Because he said, we messed up. My bad. How can we fix it? And that was, the suggestion. So another thing that, people brought up was, the testing stuff, how much amounts it takes for you to test. And to be honest, the tables they had were really confusing. And then even in my own public comments, you guys can read publicly, I told them just to go rework that whole thing. Sometimes there's just a number with nothing behind it unit wise, not even gram, pound, or ounces or anything. So you're not too sure what they're talking about. It says 10, it's like, that could be 10 grams, that could be 10 ounces, that could be 10 pounds, that could be 10 nanograms. I don't know. And so all of us were kind of on the same page, like, it's a little weird, blah, blah, blah. One testing facility was there. They actually came from Sunland Park, so that was good to see.
Good. Yeah.
But it's also unfortunate because Albuquerque's right there and they have a bunch and none of them showed up. Like for some reason, it's always the South having to, kind of show up to things, because a lot of Southern businesses showed up and a lot of Albuquerque, Santa Fe didn't, even though they were there. And that was unfortunate because their voices matter. And if we would have filled up that whole room, they would have had to move locations. And that would have been an even bigger message to them. What's a better message than, look how many of us showed up to either show support or hate what the hell's going on, but we care. And that was what we were showing. And to be honest, they love that. They appreciate that and want to hear from it. But we'll get back to the rules and everything, that they pretty much everyone went through that and the whole thing. It took about an hour because the hearing ended around 11:15 is when everything got, broken off and everything. So that was pretty much everything that happened. We met with the director, everything afterwards, had some lunch with some people afterwards, and then we headed back down. So, we'll see what happens. It's up to them at the end of the day, and they said they'll let us know. So there could be a chance of another hearing soon, or they could just scrap that whole thing, write some new ones, and then maybe next year or something, there might be a new rules hearing, but I have no clue.
I think that one of the things a lot of people that are in the industry, and I'll even say even from the traditional side, I did my air quotes there, that dealing with the bureaucracy of the government is a pain in the ass. It is just straight up. You've learned that throughout the years, that all the hoops, all the different things that you have to go through and everything else like that. And I think getting everybody to kind of understand that, because there's a lot of people that work the system and they get what they want. I think that the cannabis industry has to learn how to work within that system too and get all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that basically means, coming up with the ideas between the entire community. I love the fact that you do those meetings every once in a while. You travel to
town halls.
Town halls. You travel to the different cities, and I watched a couple and seeing how everybody else thinks. But to trying to get that whole community to come together and let them know how to make sure to run it properly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that, like testing, you want a certain set of standards. What do they need to be tested for? What information do the patients need? And what information do the sellers and the growers need? and you get those standards set, and then that's the community and the government telling the labs, these are the tests that you have to find and do, and these are the results that we want their information on.
Yeah.
And that way you have that standard set, and then everybody can take a look at that information and go, okay, this is what that means, or the patient can take a look at that, or try and decide what's best for them as you go along through that, because everybody knows what their limits are, what they have, or what they like, as far as that goes. So I think that getting the community together the way that you have is a good thing, but you definitely need the participation. You need to get out to these town halls. You need to get out there and let your voices heard, because I've heard you say it, one person can say something, but two is constituents.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you get that because everybody wants to succeed, and everybody else, they want everybody to succeed.
Yeah.
As far as I don't think I personally met anybody that says, I'm the one that's going to be on top and everybody else I'm just going to crush under my feet, although I know they're out there because that's business.
Yeah.
But the community in general, they want everybody to succeed. They want everybody to make money. Heck, the more money you guys make, the more money the government gets, the more they're happy, the more that you can get done. And some of that actually comes from self-regulation as well as what the CCD is. You got to have everybody on the same page to go ahead and make sure that you are following those rules and set those rules for yourself. You know, I'm once again, this could be my ignorance speaking here for a little bit, but I mean, there's a lot of unwritten rules in the traditional market that everybody follows, right?
Yeah.
So why not have those rules for, the legal side and just make sure that everybody is just following those rules?
That's a good way to put it, the unwritten rules part, because the traditional market did have a lot of its unwritten rules, and its nuances and all that good stuff. But we are,
which I know nothing about, so don't take my word on anything like that. Yeah.
So that's the component we're missing in the legalization or the legalized market too in New Mexico. And I had a conversation with one of the operators afterwards. We all kind of talked afterwards, and I mentioned the whole rat thing. Like being a rat and ratting someone out. Like some people don't like the fact that you can report people in the industry, this and that. I'm like, yeah, but that's every industry. Like even the salons, there's a number you can call and report someone doing something wrong.
Oh yeah.
Like there's absolutely a number. It's for every industry. We're not going to get away from that, is what I'm saying. Like that's just standard. What we're going to get away from is this standard rat mentality of if you say something going on wrong, whatever the fuck, because everyone has their own definition of being a rat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't necessarily mean you're just saying something going on or whatever the fuck. It's not really what being a rat means, but most people take it as if you say anything that you see going wrong and you say it, you're a rat. And that's not what it really means. And that's the problem that we have in the industry, is that there's like 10 million definitions of what being a rat is. And, like we're kind of stuck. And so when you want to say something, this is, this person is doing this wrong, and I need to say something because it's going to harm somebody. Like someone's going to get hurt doing this, but I don't want to be a rat. And so you don't. And then all these issues just continue in the state.
Yeah.
We have to self-police.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it comes down to, is kind of self-regulating, self-policing.
Yeah.
But still the same thing. If somebody's doing something, and I mean, I agree with you, you don't want to be a rat. You don't want to tell on someone. You don't want to be the informer.
You don't want to be the tattletale.
You don't want, you don't want, that, snitches get stitches, as they say. But, that person that's doing something wrong, or the business is doing something wrong, that's just going to bring everything down, and it's going to reflect on everybody else. You know, the stigma that's there for cannabis is there already. It happened, I think, last year when you had some of those other businesses that were doing something wrong in there, and it just made everybody else look bad.
Yeah.
And for the community and for everybody else, once again, I think it's coming together and backing each other up. But, the rules, the standards, you have to follow those. And one person that does something wrong is going to make everybody look bad. And then next thing you know, the general public is like, oh, it's just all those potheads doing it. It's crazy, fucked up shit.
Yeah, and those illegal Chinese farms that they
oh
shut
yeah,
down. That was a black eye.
Yeah.
For the whole industry. And the people that operate in that area, they just have a bad taste in their mouth because of that. The state allowed it to go on for so long. But there's so much procedural shit that goes on with government that I can't hold them accountable 100% because jurisdictions change depending on what goes on legally. Like, they could have done something else. Well, now this goes to the feds. We got to wait on the feds. And to be honest, I think that's what happened, is they were just waiting to get more cases so that way they can get a charge. But I'm hearing that they're back operating anyway.
Yeah.
So it looks like we have a long way to go. hopefully this enforcement component that they added will, at least crack down on stuff like that a lot more quicker than what's being done.
And you know what I'd like to see, as far as the enforcement line goes, because they have to hire those CCD cops, right? They have to hire those enforcement. Hey, we have a lot of veterans. We have a lot of people that, have experience with something like that. You know what? Those that are advocates maybe should be trying to apply for those positions. And that way, what's going on, and you can help them understand what we're looking for and how to do that.
Yeah. And that is another thing that's missing in our industry is it's being ran by people that don't know dick about the industry, the plant, any of it.
It's a bunch of people like me.
That's fair. Yeah. Like you're people that don't really, aren't involved with cannabis enough to know what we know. So yeah, maybe in time that'll change, because that is what will keep us honest is people
to be honest, like I said before, in the 2.5 years that we've been doing this, I've learned a lot. I get a weekly lesson every week. There's something else that comes in there and I learn something else, and I learn that because I don't consume. It's just something that it's not that I haven't ever, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it helps me sleep, which is one thing I've considered, but learning all these things like that. And for especially the politicians up there, the ones that have been there for years and other things like that, they don't get that weekly lesson. They get a lesson every once in a while when you go up to the rules committee or when you guys are having those sessions or something else like that. Having the mayor from Grants, be somebody that's into the industry there is actually helping out a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we need more people to go ahead and do that because it's not a matter of trying to convince people that it's not bad or something else, because some people are going to have that. But getting as those generations come up, as more people that are coming up like that, to kind of educate and just let people know exactly what's going on. Educate them more, once again, on the medical side of things. Mm-hmm. We should really, like you said, the focus should really be on the medical side of things. And then the recreational side is just going to benefit from all of that.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. So, I mean, that's all I really had for the CCD thing. That was my update and little story time. That was the big one right there. Yeah, that was
I think we said this was going to be a short episode.
We did, and that's probably going to be the longest one that we have this whole one. So, hopefully, we'll see.
I haven't even looked at the time yet.
I know, right? I have no clue where we're at, but we'll keep going on. So if you guys, are curious about that, I will keep you updated on the updates for, the CCD stuff. If, when, whatever the rules change or there's another hearing, I'll let y'all know. I will be there as well. But these are important to show up to. So make sure you can just show up to the next one if it happens. Rules are important and they do want to hear from us. So be the change. Don't allow it to change you or have you change, because that's what happens. When change happens without people telling them is you have to change, not them changing things for you. And they want to hear from us. So, but anyway, while I was driving back from Albuquerque, Colt DeMorris, our Texas advocate, was in the car, and he got a notification that essentially the advocates in Texas defeated their hemp ban again.
Oh, good.
As you guys have been hearing, the past few months, almost a year, it feels like, most of the year, it feels like Texas has been battling a hemp ban, the Delta 8s, THCA, pretty much everything. And they defeated it successfully the first time in the regular session. Immediately after that one ended, the governor called a special session. And this one was to, get back to the cannabis thing. But the difference is Lieutenant Dan, the lieutenant governor, I just call him Lieutenant Dan, the lieutenant governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, he hates cannabis. He wants it banned. And to be honest, I think he's paid by the alcohol lobby, a lot of the tobacco alcohol people in Texas. I think they pay him a lot. I do want to try to get one of the Texas advocates on the show before the season's over, so that way we can get a download exactly from them, because, they know the legislature way than I do.
Yeah.
I can only really speak from what I've been told and what I've seen myself. But yeah, Dan Patrick hates it, but the governor himself, Abbott, he actually wants it regulated. He said, I want this regulated. I don't want to, I don't want the veterans to lose access. And it looked like him and Dan Patrick and a couple other, I think the legislature just could not come to an agreement. And so Dan Patrick had put on, Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Dan. I'll just call him Lieutenant Dan because I confuse myself. I was going to call him, don't confuse myself.
Yeah.
So Lieutenant Dan had put on his X, or, formerly known as Twitter, that they're going to send Dine, or, they're going to be done, Sine Dine, because they couldn't come to a conclusion on that matter. So he said, we're going to finish up what we're doing with the flood relief stuff, and then we're going to, end tonight after that. So as of Wednesday, they ended their session, and Texas defeated their legislature again when it comes to hemp. So congratulations to the advocates in Texas. And to be honest, this is a lesson to everybody around the nation that you can change shit. I mean, Texas is one of the most anti-cannabis places in the nation with one of the biggest cannabis markets in the nation.
Because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't think there's any place in the country that is cannabis free or kind of against that way. I think it's always been around. I mean, I've known about it since I was a kid, you know, stuff like that. And it's not going to be any different in Texas. The difference is that if you can regulate it to make sure that you're not getting any bad stuff that's out there and make money off it. I think I told you before, if you want the politicians to pay attention, you know, give them the ideas where it's going to get more money into their pockets. I don't mean in the bad way, not the bad way, in a good way. In the name of taxes and stuff like that you can get through there. And some of the ways that a lot of that will bring revenue into the state and into the cities and into the communities that are there. Yeah. I mean, once again, you can take Sunland Park for an example, or even just take here in Cruces and all of the other smaller cities in and around here in New Mexico, up north, the whole thing like that, that those ones are actually helping out more of the communities because you're actually getting more money flowing through those communities. That's the way economics works, Matt. The more money that you have moving, the better it is for everybody. Yeah, exactly. And you know that Albuquerque's already funding that UBI program where they're giving a certain number of families $750 a month. Wow. You know, that's huge. You know, $700 for a family who might be struggling. That's the difference between I can provide food and get my kids new clothes, or I can only provide food. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and then my kid has to go to school with the same stuff that he wore last year that may not fit anymore. You know, because kids grow, you know, pretty quickly. You know, come to find out. I'm well aware of that. Yeah, come to find out. They grow pretty fast. They do grow pretty fast. Yeah. So, you know, that might, you know, change a family's, you know, life, essentially. That might get them right back on track where they go. Who knows? I don't know. We don't know yet, you know, because this is so new. But cannabis funded that. You know, like we did that, you know, like that's something great that we did for the state. I want to continue that. And we can keep proving that to the politicians by doing this, but we got to speak up. Yeah, that's the first thing is you got to speak up. We got to show up, and we got to continue to change this industry for the better. So my congratulations to Texas. Again, you guys are kicking ass out there with this advocacy game out there. You guys are tired as fuck, and I get it, and you deserve a goddamn vacation. So take the rest. They won't have another legislative session unless there's another special one for 2 years. Yeah. So you guys are safe for 2 years. Congrats. We have to fight every damn year. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the next 2 years. I have a feeling in the next 2 years in Texas, there might be a huge shift on who's going to be in charge. Yeah, in 2 years, there could be a shift about who's going to be in charge. In 2 years, something might even be done on the national level as far as federal goes. Yeah. So you never know how that's going to work. Yeah. Before, I mean, I know a lot of people think that people on the right are against cannabis or anything else like that, and actually that's not true because there's probably a bunch of them. I've covered that on the show before. Yeah. It's not like that. Yeah. And, it's normally the people they elect just happen to be anti-cannabis. Well, even I will dare say his name. Even if you go all the way up to the top with Trump when he was in Florida, he said that he would vote for the legalization in Florida. Yeah. But it just barely lost because they didn't quite get the right percentage in there. And I feel that if you honestly take a look at that, if anything, you know what? We have labs, we have research facilities, we have research places here in New Mexico. You know what? We should be doing more research on cannabis. We should be finding out more about the plant and what it does and the effects that it has on everybody. Because, and this is one of the things, if you can go ahead and research and find out about fentanyl and all the other stupid, goofy drugs that you have in there. Did I fall off camera? No, you're good. The goofy, drugs that you can get addicted to on legally through doctors and pharmacies and stuff like that. You know, take a look at this stuff because it could be better. And I just think we need the research to get that done. And it would be good to have New Mexico as that example of how to get things done and how everything can get together. Because if it does change federally, then a lot of those states are going to need that example about what do we do to make this work right. Well, hold that thought. I have something for that at the very end. I got one more thing before. Yeah, that's what's known as a tease. Oh, tease, a little bit of tease there. Yeah, a little bit of panty liner. So
before I get to that part, because I agree with you, but we might be on the right track here in New Mexico to do that. But yesterday, the governor announced that we are going to be in a special session next month, October 1st. So go ahead and bring that article up if you don't mind.
I'd like to, but my mouse won't right up there.
So right here is the governor's announcement. Now, I read it, and we can read it for you guys. Go ahead and if you can scroll down. It looks like Gino's mouse was given him issues.
See, when I don't have my hand on the mouse all the time, this is when it's going to work.
So, but yeah, the governor announced yesterday that there's going to be a special session here in New Mexico. This isn't a surprise. This is something that I've been getting told was going to happen for probably a few weeks now. It's not like it's something that came out of the blue. We just weren't sure when it was going to happen exactly and what was going to be on the governor's, pretty much agenda of what she wanted. Like I said, it's going to be October 1st. I don't know how long it's going to be. In New Mexico, they tend to be fairly short, but it could be a month long. I have no clue. So some of the stuff, and Gino's trying to work on getting the website stuff going. If you can't, don't worry. I have the stuff right here. It's really going to be funding health stuff. Since, the federal funding stuff changed, New Mexico's kind of short on the funding for the Medicaid and all that good stuff. We're a little short on that. So they're going to be addressing that is essentially what's going to happen. So it's going to be funding rural health care delivery fund, taking action to make healthcare insurance premiums more affordable, Medicaid coverage, new investments in food assistance for children, funding for public broadcasting. That was cut too. Additional resources to help the healthcare authority prepare for upcoming Medicaid enrollment changes. So yeah, no big deal, Gino. I got it.
We got the headline.
Yeah, we got the headline at least though. So we're having a little technical difficulties there, but at least I got the information for you guys out. No cannabis was mentioned, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it's huge. But no cannabis was mentioned, but that doesn't mean it won't get brought up. There's a chance that it could get brought up. I don't know if it will, but keep an eye out, and I'll let you guys know too. I already put a thing on my story today showing people how to use the NM Legis website. That's actually on my Instagram. You might have to scroll a little while. Maybe I'll pin it again during the session and everything so you guys know. So that's everything pretty much going on with the special session. I wanted to make sure everybody knows about that because is cannabis mentioned? No, but it can. During a special session, the legislature can pretty much introduce whatever they want. This is just the governor's agenda of what she is doing this special session for. So if something passes that isn't on here, she may or may not sign it. But it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. To me, a lot of this stuff is just preparing for the future of changes. So we'll see what comes from it. Like I said, we got a few weeks to prepare. Until then, I'll just keep you guys informed on what's being said and if there's any bills that are pre-filed. Because the pre-filing will probably happen here in a couple weeks. So that's all I have for that. Gino, do you have any questions on that, man? You think or conversation? I know you're busy over here.
Well, special sessions. I can
say that 5 times fast.
I am a professional. I've been up for a while now. But some of these special sessions are interesting the way that they come up because the governor's called them before. Mm-hmm. I think there was a bunch of 2A stuff in Albuquerque and crime stuff that they brought up in the past. And
we actually passed cannabis on a special session.
Oh, yeah. So things can happen in a special session.
Yeah.
God, I cannot say that today.
SP. Wait. SS, special session. We don't want to say that. No.
No, we don't want to say that.
Yeah, special session.
SP, a special sesh. Yeah, that would be coming up, that they're important and you got to be paying attention to what's going on in there. Yeah, that's what I think. So
definitely.
But once again, it's just one of those things. How much is the community going to support or talk about that whole thing when it comes up?
Yeah, and if any of this is going to affect you, contact your representatives, your state representatives, and let them know what you want to see or what you hope to see, because these are probably most likely going to be put in there. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be a bunch of fluff bills too. Those get put in there all the time, BS bills that aren't going to pass. But we'll see what happens. Here in a couple weeks, I'll keep you guys updated. So the very last thing we're going to talk about, and I said this is going to be a fast episode, it's going to be under an hour hopefully, is the DEA announced that the Veteran Affairs in Albuquerque here in New Mexico applied for requests for authorization for Schedule 1 and 2 substances. And what that means is they're applying for this, and it's right here. And I mean, you don't have to read the whole article on that one. I just wanted to pull up the headline at least. What they're going to do with this one is they're going to be studying cannabis use on veterans. Is it effective? Will it help? Et cetera, because You can study cannabis in America if it's a Schedule 1 and 2 substance. You just have to get a special, documentation, bureaucratic BS through the DEA. And the VA being who they are, they're a government entity, pretty easy for them to request that, and it's straight medical. It says they must follow 21 USC 952A.2 or whatever, which limits the how much cannabis and all that stuff and what they can use. And it's very strict. None of this is going to be allowed for distribution. It's going to be a study, so if there's an opportunity for even me to join this study, I'll join it because I'm a part of the VA system here in New Mexico. I'd love to be a part of this study myself. So that's one reason why I'm bringing it up, because the veterans out there, if you're listening, if this is you in Albuquerque especially, keep an eye out for it, because you might be able to get medical cannabis from the VA finally on their dime. Like you're not paying for it, because right now we have to pay for it ourselves. So check my socials for updates on this. I'll be keeping more people informed on it. I just heard about this before the show happened. So we'll see what happened. If they get approved, Albuquerque VA, that's huge. That's what we were talking about before.
That's exactly what I mentioned before, that we should be studying this right here. And that would be a great example of what to do and to get these studies out there so that you have that. Because there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of things that people assume about cannabis that they don't know. I had a few of them in my mind. I've learned a lot of things. So if everybody else can get that education, and the best way to do that is to study it and see if it works. If we can do the studies that we're going to have on mushrooms, on that stuff, psilocybin? Psilocybin.
Yeah.
I was close.
You're getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm still learning. But they were doing research on that. They were trying to learn about a lot of things like that. The fact that this whole industry or this plant has been stigmatized for so long that people aren't willing to take a look at that, which blows my mind, considering we've had heroin in the past. We talk about all the fentanyl stuff that's out there that's going crazy, all the medicines that we used to use in some way to help people out. And cannabis being like one of the most benign ones that's out there. Even before it was recreational, you knew a lot of people that were doing it, and yet somehow society still functioned fairly well. I said fairly well. So, but it was those outliers, the ones, like I said, the one person that does something wrong or does something bad that gives the whole idea of that. Because I know it. There's a lot of people, professionals, a lot of others that will partake. And like I said, everything seems to run fine anyway. And I think we should use that as an example, because even being recreational for these past few years, do we have statistics on crime statistics? Do we have anything else like that? Has it made a difference in anything the way that it's running right now? I don't think anybody's really even noticed a difference.
No.
Other than occasionally when you're walking around outside, you go like, ooh, okay.
Yeah. I think that is like the main difference, is you just smell it more. I think really, there's not like, the sky fell. Cars are running into each other at every corner. Like that's not happening.
My nephew is attending NMSU in here, and so he moved into my spare room, and the other day he said, the other night, you can definitely smell that there was this skunk out there or something. I'm going like, yes, it was a skunk in the middle of the city. That's exactly what that smell was.
Yeah. Like, definitely.
I'm not going to tell him.
Yeah. I was like, I'll let him figure it out.
But that's what I'm saying. We need the research done. We need to be leading that area of research to go ahead and have that done, because, and it surprises me, because as I don't want to say as, liberal as the state is, or democratic or anything else like that, why don't we have some of these, politicians saying, let's lead the country in research. We've got, would it be interesting to have Salamos National Labs start working on saying like, hey, this stuff works really well for some things.
We do have a license in New Mexico for a research lab for cannabis. We just don't have any. Like not
somebody's got to take advantage of that license,
Yeah, they do. And what they need is they need like a government funding is what they need for that. Because you have to pay for that license, and so the
VA and the DEA just asked for something there.
Exactly. And what I was thinking, I was like, this is actually an opportunity, because we had UNM, they did a psilocybin, study not too long ago. This actually allows UNM to piggyback off of the VA. So this does give the state a direct opportunity. I just don't know if they're going to do it or not. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if that happens.
They should.
They really should, because this would be a great opportunity for the VA, UNM and the VA, to get some really great data out of this, and especially for the state.
Forget about UNM. We have an ag college that's growing just about everything over here. Why can't they do more of the research?
That'd be great too. Maybe we can, figure out because, we know that whole, the bright green situation. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's
we're not going to rely on them. Maybe NMSU could apply for, a Schedule 1-2 substance, thing. Because, who was it? The state of Mississippi had it for, so many 20, 30 years. They had that exact license from the DEA to grow cannabis for those medical cannabis patients and for research. Why not NMSU? They already control the hemp program here in New Mexico. They're already very familiar with the cannabis stuff in New Mexico. Exactly. It would only make sense for that. So that's actually a really good idea and a great proposal.
Yeah, I'm smart once in a while. And this goes back to what we've talked about before. Yeah. Props to the CCD. You have to have something that's going to go organize that or anything else like that. But if you ever get to the point where it is descheduled, why isn't the Department of Agriculture or New Mexico Department of Agriculture looking more at this as a regulated plant than anything else?
Yeah, exactly. And I think when that time comes, that might just be the case, because they're going to be like, all right, guys, this is now a federally legal crop, which it might fall under us now. If it's descheduled.
Yeah. Because then it's not, there's no need for a drug enforcement or anybody on the DOA side to go ahead. DOJ side to go ahead and get involved with that, because it's legal. It would be then, Yeah,
exactly. So, but that's pretty much all I had for this week, and the announcements and everything.
Yeah, so much for the short episode.
Yeah, shorter. I thought it was going to be 30 minutes.
An hour
5 minutes under an hour.
No, we just went over an hour.
Oh,
5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes. Cool. 5 minutes. So, I kept it under an hour at least, but I thought it was going to be a little bit shorter. But there's a lot more information and context in this than I thought there was going to be. So.
But I think there's a lot of conversations to be had on stuff like this, and the conversations that should be having.
Yeah.
To get more people involved with the town halls, all of your Padawans that are doing things without you out there.
Yeah.
The advocacy side really needs to step up. And I think you've said it before. If you are in the industry in any way, you are an advocate, and you need to step up to get your voice heard. The only part that connects me to this industry is doing this show with you. But when I'm talking to other people, I'm going like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and take a look at this.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's so I'm not your Padawan quite yet.
You're getting there.
I'm learning things. I will be like I tell people, I will be the fool that is asking the questions, just to find out and learn a lot more about this.
Yeah.
So that would be it. So.
Well, I appreciate you, being here all these years, willing to listen and willing to learn, because, that makes a big difference.
I think that's one of the things that once again, the advocates need to do. I don't think it's a matter of people that are against it. I think they're against certain things that they've heard in the past and that they're used to. Yeah. So you need to educate. You need to let them know about other things that are going on like that, and that's going to make the difference between it all.
Yeah,
education. Give them the knowledge that they need to know about all this stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure almost everybody has a family member somewhere that will advocate for it, and they just need to, ask them some questions about what's going on. And it's not necessarily for everybody. Like I said, I don't partake.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to deny somebody that it's actually going to help out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to say that, Chad's an asshole because he smokes weed. He could be for other reasons, but not because of that.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're good. That was a good one.
Yeah.
No, but that's a good point. It doesn't make you a bad person. And, like you said before, it doesn't matter what side of the spectrum of political that you stand, left, right, middle, whatever. You like cannabis, like majority of Americans want legalized cannabis. I think it's like 65 or almost 70% now, which means that left, right, and center, this is a bipartisan issue. And it needs to be treated as such. It's just unfortunate we have fermenting apples in Congress.
That's more like fermenting onions.
It's starting to stink now. So, I'm glad we all agree on that. Term limits. God damn it.
I'm definitely for term limits for sure.
Yeah, I think at this point, I feel like a lot of us are.
Yeah, not to turn it into too much of a political discussion, but I think that, and every day I think you hear about more and more people that are getting out, and we just need to put in place a lot of those people that are doing that, whether, Republican or Democrat or anything else. I think there's a lot of people that are coming up in politics these days that would be for and advocate for cannabis.
And I think, the way that our political world is going, it's not great, don't get me wrong, but I think it's leading to a nonpartisan kind of thing, like to where people are going to stop worrying so much about parties. Don't get me wrong, you're going to have those diehards. They're always going to be there. But for the most part, because the most common voter in America is the independent voter.
Absolutely.
That's what wins or loses you in an election, is that independent voter. And that tells me that we're leading towards just fucking get the job done. I don't care what party.
Here's the thing. There are many ways to get things done. There are many ways that you can advocate for cannabis, many ways that you can advocate for getting the whole thing descheduled right there. And there's more than one path on getting there. And the different ideas that you have of getting there, but if everybody works for that common goal, we can get that done. And I think that's a lot of what we get into politics.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to get things done, but everybody's going to have their ideas on how to get that done. You talk about it, you hash it out, you have these conversations, and then you work towards the same goal. And I think, as you said, more and more we're getting people that are just working to the same goal. Like, let's just get shit working right.
Yeah, let's fix it
in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, not everywhere.
Not a political statement in any way.
Exactly. So, Gino, appreciate you joining me this week, man. It was a great. Not a problem. I think it was a great suggestion. The guests that have been suggesting you joining me and kind of chiming in and stuff. So maybe this is something we'll keep on. Let us know how you guys enjoyed it. We only continue if you guys like it.
I would say that I don't mind playing that devil's advocate of somebody who's kind of outside of that thing to notice things, because there's a lot more to it than just you want to go get a session on something like that. There's a lot more to it than just that.
Yeah,
that's going on.
Yeah, and we have a lot to show them improve anyway. So why not start now? So
exactly.
Not start Monday. We start now. So.
We start. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So.
Yeah. Start on Friday, not Monday. Oh wait. Saturday
when the show comes out. So sorry for the episode being late again, guys. It's been an interesting season, but we're getting it figured out. We got a lot of changes coming. But we got a lot of good ideas too that I want to implement. So we'll see you guys next week with another episode of Grassy Logic. Is it going to be the same kind of thing that I've been doing? I don't know. Wait and find out.
We'll play with some toys.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All right, guys. I'll see you. Shoots.